right. Welcome back to another episode of the One-on-One podcast. My name is Joshua Katz. I am joined, as always, I really need to figure out a new phrasing for that, don't I?
We're 3 seasons in and you still don't have a new...
I know. I just want it to be a catchphrase, but I am joined, as always, by Kathy Baker and Ryan Esteban, my two partners in crime on this podcast. Welcome, both of you guys. How are you?
Thank you. I keep telling you, I really like peas in a pod. I'm joined with my peas in the pod.
Kathy, we've now been in 2 different events where you've talked about getting a peas in a pod tattoo with Ryan and I. And I mean, I think am I the only one that has tattoos out of the 3 of us? So it's no skin off my, you know what, but if you guys want to do it, just tell me when.
Well, you don't know that I don't have it. Actually.
Yeah, same. What if I got one?
That's true.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, I'm excited about today, but I got to tell you, it was such an exciting thing to do our podcast live.
Oh yeah,
when we were at Summit. Fun. This is post Summit, so we had an amazing one talk with our guest speaker today at Summit, and I'm glad to be able to follow up and to piggyback on the momentum and to keep it going. But it was delightful, and I had several calls, Josh. I have to tell you and Ryan this, with people that said they enjoyed that episode so much because it seemed like we were all such good friends, and I said we are, and I just feel so blessed. I want to say that to get to work with you guys and how much I appreciate you. So thank you.
I mean, the feeling's mutual, Kathy. It's as much work as our events are, they're just as much fun. And so when we all get to be in one small little room, you and I are literally sitting butt to butt, sharing a microphone. We got Mike Clear and Corey across from the table. It doesn't feel like work at that point. So I hope, yeah,
exactly.
It's awesome.
Well, let's jump into this one because I know we have a lot to talk about today. One of the newer members of our One family. I mean, he's been here for about 6 months. Ricky Khamis. I just gotta really, before we start, this is our president of EPIQ Lending, and I'm sure you get this all the time. Your last name just makes me want to have a glass of red wine. I hope you know that.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm not tied to that.
Yeah. But welcome.
Be on an island.
It's so good to have you. We want to kind of get to know you a little bit, and then we want to jump into the theme of discipline, which I know runs true in pretty much every facet of your life. So maybe just give us like a quick bird's eye view of your career, what brought you to Realty ONE Group, what you've done since August 2023, EPIQ Lending, but a subsidiary of Realty ONE Group. But go ahead.
Sure. No, one thing that drew me to Realty ONE, aside from being backed by one of the largest lenders in the country, was the pure, unadulterated culture that I witnessed while I was traveling around interviewing the managers and the agents in the offices. I wanted to find out what I was getting into, right? Before I would make a decision, because I had a very successful career prior, and this was something new, right? Mm-hmm. To jump into a joint venture with a company as large as this. And everywhere I went, I was welcomed with open arms, and no one had anything negative to say about the company or EPIQ, right? Yeah. As the lender. And then, the final straw was I flew out to California and met with Cuba, and from that day forward, it was, okay, we need to be in business together, because this guy, wow. Right.
Right.
I thought I had crazy energy, and, it definitely met my match. And I knew that I could take this company to what it really should be doing. And the goal is doing $1 billion a month in business, and that business is already happening. I'm just building up the rivers and the forks to come to EPIQ and make it what it really should be, an EPIQ lending company. So
it's in the name.
Yeah, exactly. I got my start in the 82nd Airborne. I was an infantry guy. I scored really well on the ASVAB when I went in, and, I had every job available to me. And then I saw the one airborne. I was like, oh, what's this guy do? And the recruiter said he jumps out of airplanes and dies. I said, okay, so if I live then that means I'm pretty tough. And he goes, you're not going to live. And I said, I'm doing that. So he had to go to my house because I was 17 years old when I signed up and get my mom's permission. She's like, he's going to do what he wants. So that fast forward, that relentless spirit of just pure discipline is what drew me to that. And it's translated into every aspect of my life.
So let's kind of start there. Your first real job at 17 is a job that basically, if you don't have the right discipline, you will die. So you learned this from a very, very, very early age, it sounds like.
Very early age, yes. And if you didn't have it going in, you left with it.
Right.
You didn't have much of a choice. Like there's zero tolerance for a lack of discipline.
Right.
Zero. And luckily, fortunately for me, I was disciplined anyway. Always been into fitness and martial arts and, just things like that require a lot of discipline.
Sure.
I didn't realize how disciplined I was until I got around a bunch of guys who weren't that disciplined and always kept getting in trouble.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out why they couldn't just shine their shoes. But here we are.
So discipline obviously does not come easily to most people, because if it did, we would have a lot more successful people in our society. How do you, being the president of a company or even running through your career in corporate America, how do you coach that? I'm very into esoteric things as well. And Plato says that the first and best victory is to conquer self. Mm-hmm. So I'm a study of that. It's this constant evolution of more discipline and discipline in different aspects, right? Different areas, whether it's business or family or faith or finance, everything requires discipline to do the mundane thing that you just know you should do. And that's what makes people successful, is that they are just so disciplined in the mundane. Right. In the daily task that is the boring thing. Yeah. Everybody wants to go out and write a contract and get paid from escrow, right? And then travel. But do they want to make that 1,000th phone call that it's going to take to get it? Right. That's the discipline that I teach, is that mundane, relentless, consistent pursuit of excellence in all aspects. I'm constantly chasing my best self personally. And that's what I coach people to. I've had to really tone it back because, not everybody is like me, that wakes up at 4:30 in the morning and, it really is a difficult thing. But I pride myself on doing the difficult things, taking the 10-minute cold shower, that kind of thing. And, a lot of people, and I've learned this over the years, when I very first got into this and I was building a team and, I built my first office in 2004. I had 40 loan officers and I was churning them, right? Because they couldn't handle the pressure of being held accountable, which is also another discipline, right? Can you be held accountable? And are you going to stop lying to yourself and those around you about what you claim you want and do the thing? So I had to learn to really scale that back. So I've been involved in very, very high level leadership courses and coaching, and I travel all over the country to meet with coaches like Jocko Willink, Goggins I've met, Ryan Stewman, all these different guys who are at the precipice of leadership. Sure. And in a way that I want to lead, right? Which is through servant leadership, help them get to where they want to go, not where I think they should go. Yeah. Right. Which has really been a mindset shift for me, because I know what you're capable of, but you may not necessarily want that. Yeah. You may not want to go do the 100 push-ups. Maybe you only want to do 10, so I've really had to scale that back and understand, okay, everybody's different.
People need to be led differently and held accountable differently. Otherwise, you're going to run everybody off. Right. So that's what I'm doing now.
And if I may ask, how have you learned? Because I think when we look at both lenders and we look at realtors, if you're a high achiever, top producer, I think one thing that's truly a leadership lesson and a life lesson is to learn to come from curiosity and not judgment. What was the turning point for you to come from that place of curiosity and discerning what do they want rather than what do I want for them? Because that's key.
That is a great question, and I have the specific answer to that. So I'm involved in Extreme Ownership, which is Jocko Willink's company, and he has a company. It's called Echelon Front. So I went to his very first muster. I've been to 3 or 4 since, and at the first muster, and if you know who Jocko is, he is a presence. I didn't realize how big he was until I was standing next to him. And he is, I mean, his head, I don't know if he has a hat that'll fit his head. His head is big. He's just a big guy, Navy SEAL, commander, has this big company, has this really deep presence of a voice. So you would think somebody like that is ego driven. That's what I thought. Right? That you will do what I say because I said it, not because I want you to, right? That's how I assumed it was because, that's how it was in the military. And somebody stood up. I'll never forget this. Somebody stood up and asked him a question on how he reacts to somebody that comes into a conversation with ego. And I'm looking at this guy from front row and I'm curious, right? Because I had a hard time with that. And he goes, I have no ego. I subordinate my ego in every conversation I have with anyone. He goes, let them have whatever ego they need. That was such a profound statement to me because one thing you said, Kathy, was being judgmental, right? And prior to that day, if you didn't do what you told me you were going to do, I judged you hard, right? And I judged you harsh. And I called you out and, good, bad, and different. It never felt good. It never felt right. It felt like I was being judgy. And I pride myself on not judging anyone for anything. Because I really don't. Like on the outside, I don't. But if you're in my inner circle and you say, hey, I'm going to do these things, and then you don't do it, I'm not one that let that go. So I've completely shifted my entire perspective and mindset around that. And I have no judgment based on if they do it, they do it. If they don't, they don't. We're going to talk about the why. And the why is more important than the actual action. So I'm getting my folks to move more based on what they perceive as their success as opposed to what I think. And everybody's different, right? One person might be okay with 2, another might be okay with 20, and they're all coached differently and held accountable differently. And I don't judge any of it now. So that was the turning point for me and our coaching, which has been amazing. That was several years ago.
You bring up a good point, which I think for a lot of people, what will create good habits, good discipline in their life is whatever their end goal may be, right? So for you, when you were starting, I mean, it sounds like you've had this kind of discipline factor the majority of your life, but what was it that drove you to continue building your business or creating these good habits or, taking a new venture with Realty ONE Group? Like what was it at the end of the line?
It's a great question. I'm a big believer on who you surround yourself with matters.
Totally.
And if I were to put this in a granular aspect of unit count, right? That like number of units per se. And I were surrounding myself with people that were doing 4 or 5 loans a month, let's say, then what am I going to do? 4 or 5 loans. So I surrounded myself even to this day, I surround myself with people doing 100 units a month.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of perspective for you.
It's complete perspective.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, you get so caught up in what you can't do, you have no idea what you can do.
Totally.
Because you're not surrounding yourself with the right people. Right. You're surrounding yourself with people who make you feel good, who fulfill your ego instead of you fulfilling someone else's ego.
Yeah.
And so from early on, I've always been in coaching too. Right. I've always had a coach and several coaches. And, that was the one common theme is surround yourself with people better than you so you can be better. Always raise your ceiling. I was
told some great advice years and years ago, and it basically just exactly what you just said. Someone asked me, would you rather be the smartest person or the dumbest person in the room? And I quickly answered, I'd rather be the smartest person in the room. And they were like, nope, absolutely not. You want to be the dumbest person in the room every single time, because then you just learn from every other person that is in that room.
That's right. That's right. And if you think about that statement, right, if you're the smartest person in the room, what ends up happening to your own intellect?
Yeah. You stoop down to the level of whoever's there.
100%.
I used to, when I had the office, I always kept the book, Chicken Little, and I would read that to the sales team because, Henny Penny ran around telling all the people in the barnyard the sky was falling and they all believed her, and it was not. And I love that story for realtors. So the point of me saying that is who you listen to is so important. I love the people that you've referenced that you're listening to. For our listeners today, if you could give us just a quick list of maybe 2 to 3 podcasts or people they need to be reading or voices they need to be listening to, because our greatest fear and what Josh and Ryan and I talk about a lot is who are our listeners listening to that are not setting that bar where it needs to be?
Totally.
Who is saying mediocre is okay? Or let the market, let the media drive what you're doing. Who would you say they need to be listening to pull out of that 2 to 3 deal a month to get them to a challenging, whatever that is for them, rate of business?
Man, that is such a great question. I love this. Here's my main thing, and I always try to keep my main thing the main thing, right? And the pain. So a part of my company is called Pain and Sacrifice, right? So it's the more pain you can put yourself through, the more successful you're going to be. In that respect, you're going to have to sacrifice some things, right? And usually it's time. Usually it's either time away from family or time away from something else you want to be doing, right? Is typically what you're sacrificing. But the pain of self-discipline will never be as great as the pain of regret. And the problem is you only see regret in the mirror, right? In the rear view. You don't see regret in front of you. All you see in front of you is hope and, all these things I'm going to achieve, but then the minutes get in the way, right? So I trained it to watch your minutes and never let the minutes get away from you. And you got to re-engage. Sometimes I have to re-engage 3-4 times a day. So I have a couple of alarms I use. 2 of them are Pomodoro actual timers. And I have them go off every 25 minutes where I reset on what I'm doing. So that way I stay on course. And it's really helped me. So podcasts, so it's funny you asked that because I went back on several episodes of yours. And the one that just caught me was the gentleman talking about AI. I'm super into AI right now and creating AI into everything, because it's in everything. It's crazy as I get into this on what AI is producing and the output and how quick it is. So number one, your podcast is, 30 minutes, right? That should be a daily dose, like 30 minutes, bang it out. I do a daily podcast called Life Mastery Unleashed. It's 5 to 7 minutes, and it's all about discipline and execution and creating resilience in your life. And it's a quick 5 to 7 minutes. So those little things, anybody can listen to something for 30 minutes, right? I religiously listen to Jocko, because the stories that he could, I'm very military minded, right? I'm a military guy. I've carried it through my whole life. And he relates a lot of the leadership lessons through actual wartime events on like literal life and death situations,
Right.
where this had to happen and I had to lead in this way to get these people to move in that direction or everybody was dead. Right. So that's my number one. I'm very into psychology and physiology. So I listen to Jordan Peterson. I read everything that he puts out. Jordan Peterson is an amazing speaker. There's a couple more along that line that I listen to pretty regular. I read anywhere from 2 to 3 books a month. My books right now, right now, I say right now, this has been probably 8 years going on, are all centered around leadership. So what I would suggest is figure out where your holes are. My hole was leadership. And because I want to build this big, massive organization, you have to have people to do that. And those people need to be running towards the same end goal and mission. But if you can't inspire them to do so, you're never going to grow big enough. You'll get big just by default of being resilient and disciplined. But can you get bigger, right? Can you row harder because you inspired? So everything that I consume to this day is all centered around leadership. So let's say somebody, to Kathy's point, wants to elevate their units from 1 to 4 units a month, and they just can't get out of their own way of that 1 unit. Sometimes they pop 2 to 3, but it's the sunshine and the blind squirrel, right? I would in that instance, they need to consume everything they can do about the people who were doing 4 to 8 to 10 units a month. What are they doing? And I'm telling you, they're not doing anything that they don't know. They know what to do. They're just not doing it enough.
Right.
They're not knocking on enough doors. They're not making enough phone calls. They're not touching their database enough because they're so afraid of having a bruised ego. Right. And how do you bruise somebody's ego? You call them up and they have no clue who you are, even though you sold them a home 2 years ago. And it's, if you take extreme ownership, that's your fault. Right. Yeah. But that's okay. You can lead with that. You're still in the running. Right. So I would tell, and this is literally what I tell all salespeople of all calibers, is seek the people who are doing what you want to be doing and find out what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you there's no magic pill. It's just hard work. I have a mantra and I end every podcast with it, and every post I do, it's outgrind, outwork, out hustle everyone.
We will title this episode that, I promise you.
Nice. And I've always been this guy that, great. I didn't go to Harvard, right? I went to the 82nd, and I learned one of the most elite skills you can ever learn, which is number 1 is discipline. And number 2 is you can literally do anything you put your mind to, right? I had a severe fear of heights. Paralyzing fear of heights. Okay. So then I pick a job that you jump out of airplanes.
Right.
I didn't realize it at the time that was going to be a thing. And man, that first jump was, it's stuck to me to this very day, the feeling of that one jump. And I have 48 jumps since. But that one jump was so frightening. I literally was dying that day. I thought I was dying.
Yeah.
I thought I was jumping and my chute wasn't going to open, and then that was going to be it for me. And that was it. and what is fear? false expectations appearing real, right? So I jump, chute opens, and I'm like, that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
So it's weird how you can really get over something and change your perspective in 4 seconds, because that's how long it takes for the military parachute to open. You count to 4. If it doesn't open, you pull your reserve, right? So in 4 seconds, my whole life changed and my perspective on heights completely changed, and I had no fear anymore. It was crazy. But
no,
I would say,
I think it's very inspiring words, honestly. Like I hope that not only do people get to utilize you as, the president of EPIQ Lending, one of our new coaches, but also they can listen to this podcast and this could be their first step to whatever's next in their life.
Just jump. That's what I always say now and since then is just jump.
Yeah.
Don't think, jump.
Well, Ricky, we really, really, really appreciate you joining us. We don't want to take too much more of your time.
I appreciate you.
But thank you. Like, this was very inspiring. I'm going to have a kick-ass workout after this episode. I promise you that.
Yeah, get on it.
So thank you.
If people want to follow up with you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
I would have them go to really just send me a text or a DM. Follow me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram, just type in my name, Ricky Khamis, on Facebook or Instagram. Follow me, shoot me a DM, and let's connect. I love meeting with, so after the summit, I've met with about a dozen agents across the country, via Zoom, to talk to them about their own discipline in their life. Right. And it's pretty interesting, the things I'm hearing on it. You wouldn't think that everybody is as motivated as they actually are once you get into it.
Totally.
Right. And so the first thing I tell them, stop lying, stop looking in the mirror, stop lying to yourself, just jump. So follow me on Instagram, DM me, call me. I am available, and I'm looking forward to meeting. My goal is that everyone at Realty ONE Group knows who EPIQ Lending is. And that is my mission right now. Period.
Love it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ricky. We appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We thank you for joining us today on another episode of One on One, a Realty ONE Group podcast. We are powered by One.U and ask if you have suggestions, recommendations, or questions, please email learning@realtyonegroup.com. And remember, pay close attention to the details. Listen to understand, not respond, and always be a resource, not a sales pitch.